Hi everyone, it's Kathie. Thanks so much for joining me. Today I have an alternate project to share with you. We're going to be featuring the April 2018 Paper Pumpkin Kit. Alright, here's the card that we're going to make. And starting off, we're going to use the anchor. And I do have it mounted on the other side. And then we have Soft Sky, which I'm really sad that they're retiring. And I have Tempting Turquoise Stamp and Write marker. And I do have a regular piece of white cardstock. Now, I'm only going to ink up that bottom part of the anchor. So we're just going to ink up across that bottom part. And I do swipe that center part just for good measure. And then we'll just do our first impression. And for the second one, we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to kind of meet up at the top and come out at the bottom, just so that it widens it a bit. And we want to create an S shape. So we're going to turn the stamp in the other direction and stamp the third image. And then for the fourth one, we're going to come out a bit more so that the bottom part of that mermaid tail looks a little bit wider. And then we'll stamp the center to finish off the mermaid. Now, when I did the fourth impression of the tail, I forgot to swipe off the center part. So I do have a little bit of hazing look on that side, but I'm not going to fuss about it too much. Now for the tail, we're going to do the same thing, but I do swipe the bottom tip so that we don't overlap too much and then get a really dark area there, because you don't want that. So we're going to swipe again for the other side, that tip, and then we're going to slightly overlap with the first tail. And I think that turned out perfect. Now this part here, I'm just inking up the edge, and then I'm going to stamp over top of that tail just to add some dark areas, but it didn't come out too dark, so I'm not going to fuss about it too much, even though the ink is going to fade anyway. So moving on to Tempting Turquoise, we're going to add some fish scales using that water wave stamp from the kit. So we're just going to stamp all the way up. Just make sure you taper off and clean your stamp as you go to the top there. And I'm just going to fill in a couple of areas. And I think that looks great. And now we're going to add some detail to the mermaid tail. And I didn't quite press hard enough, so it was a little bit light. So I'm going to go back in and just darken up the lines on that one side of the tail. Okay. And now we're on to Lemon Line Twist and Blushing Bride. We're just going to use a small sponge dauber, and we're going to lay down a little bit of color on the tail part and along the body. And we'll do the same thing with the Blushing Bride color. Just add a little bit here and there. And it does look a little bit dark, but believe me, it will lighten up as it dries. Okay, now we're going to use the little starfish stamp, and that is actually Bermuda Bay. I don't know what happened to showing you the color, but somehow I lost it. So I'm going to stamp a bunch of starfish in Bermuda Bay to start with. Okay, and then with Tempting Turquoise, I started off with one, and then it looked a little bit too dark, so I did stamp off for the next couple that I added. And then with Melon Mambo, I'm going to stamp a bunch of hearts. And this is also from the kit. Okay, so I think it turned out pretty good. Now, you could leave this the way it is. You can cut it out and then do a layout, but I was really determined to not cut this out. And this part here, I decided I'm going to add a little bit of Bermuda Bay on the tail just to get it a smidge darker, and along the left side of the body. Now the small envelope has kind of like a water design on the inside, and I've cut it apart. And so I have some pieces here that I'm going to decide which ones that I want. And it does have a white core, so rip it with your fingers. And once you're happy with the way it looks and the placement, I do end up fussing a little bit. And I'm ripping another one that's a little bit more straight across. That one piece looked a little bit too curved. And this is where I decided I'm going to cut just the bottom part of that tail so that I can slip the one water piece right underneath it. And I was being kind of neat about it somewhat, but the bottom part of that tail is going to end up being covered anyway, so you don't have to be too perfect. Although I was fussing a little bit there. Okay, so now I think I have it just right, and I can slip that first water piece underneath it, and it looks pretty straight. And I'm using my mono glue there to stick that down, and then I'm also going to stick the second water piece down because these pieces are not super thick or anything, and I figured I might as well just stick it down flat. And that way the two pieces, one at the back and one in the front, it looks a little bit more dimensional. Now I cut this panel down to 4 1/4, and then this striped panel, I cut it to 5 1/2. And on the short side of the panel, I cut it at 2 1/4 inches. And we're going to use the smaller piece for our card layout. And we're going to use this Mermaid stamp set, and we're going to use the sentiment only. And to make sure I get this straight, I decided to pull out my Stamp-A-Majig. And then I have some glitter enamel dots. I originally put 2 enamel dots on the left side of the mermaid, but I decided I'm just going to move it and add it to the cluster of starfishes on the body of the mermaid. But I did leave one on the left side of the mermaid body just to hide that little imperfection there. All right, we're going to assemble the card now, and I'm just going to stick the strip onto an Island Indigo panel, which is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And then this mermaid panel, I'm just going to center it. And then I did stick it onto a top folding card base. And to finish off the card, I added some glitter to the starfish and to the hearts. And then I stamped 3 starfish in Melamombo and fussy cut out each one. I stuck 2 of them down, and one of them I raised it with a dimensional. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's card tutorial, and I hope you'll give it a try. Thanks so much for joining me today. Until next time, bye for now.